Welcome to Say More from Boston Globe Opinion. I'm Anna Kussmer, producer and podcast editor at The Globe. I'm here in the studio with none other than Shirley Liang. Hi, Shirley.
Hi, Anna. How does it feel sitting in the host chair?
Well, I'm sitting here with you, which is what we always do, so it doesn't feel too different. This week, we're trying something a little bit different on the podcast. We're launching a monthly installment of Say More, and it's called The Comment Section. So when I say those words to you, Shirley, what comes to mind?
My blood pressure rises a little bit. But Anna, I have a love-hate relationship with the comment section. I love to go in, see what people are talking about. Maybe I'll get some story tips, but I hate them because people are so evil. They're so mean.
Yeah, the comment section can be a really wild place. And
Cesspool, right?
that's one way of putting it. So the title, the comment section, I'll admit, is a little bit tongue-in-cheek because these episodes are really focused on reader feedback in general, all the ways that readers are interacting with the paper and interacting with specific stories. And because Say More comes from the Boston Globe opinion section, we thought we would start there. No better place to start if you want to talk about reader feedback.
I love the engagement in the comment section. People actually take the time to write, actually sometimes fairly lengthy essays, right? For better, for worse. And so I appreciate that. I appreciate the engagement from readers.
So we thought the first thing we would do is kind of go to the source, the most commented on articles in Boston Globe opinion. So we reached out to an author of one of our most viral commented on stories of the month and asked her what she learned from the hundreds of comments that were posted under her essay. And then afterwards, I talked to Matthew Bernstein. You know Matthew?
Yes.
He is the Globe's letter editor, which means he receives hundreds of letter to the editor every week.
Yeah, I often hear from Matt, and he always gives me a preview of the letters, and he says, I'm thinking about using this letter, and I read it. Sometimes I'm happy, sometimes I'm mad, but most of the time I'm like, yeah, this is fair game.
So this range of reader feedback, we have on one end of the spectrum, the comments, which are anonymous, often pretty emotional and kind of like, let's say, a mess.
Sometimes racist, sometimes sexist
Absolutely.
as well.
Yes, definitely. They're visceral. And then on the other side of the spectrum, we have signed letters that are sent to the paper that Matthew reads. And those are generally very thoughtful. They're edited. And the person is taking full accountability for their opinions. So we wanted to kind of explore this range of reader feedback and do that every month. So people giving feedback can know that we're really listening and also just understand that journalism, it's a conversation with the public. It's not just journalists talking, in one direction. There is a lot of feedback.
It's a two-way street.
It really is. So this week we start with author and journalist Karen Stabiner, and she wrote a piece in Boston Globe Opinion called The DiCaprio Effect When Dating After 50. Have you read this, Shirley?
I did.
Okay, so the title references the fact that actor Leonardo DiCaprio keeps dating women who are more than 20 years his junior. And the author went on her own journey of dating as a woman after 50 and confronting pretty intense ageism out there in the dating scene. And she got a lot of comments on her article. And she and I dug into what the comments told her about this topic.
I tend to write essays when I sort of can't cope in real life. And I was married for a long time. I divorced my husband after 30 years. And at one point, I thought, okay, fine. I'm going to try one of these dating sites. I'm not that unusual a person in terms of my interests, movies, food, restaurants, bicycling, standard stuff. And I couldn't understand why my matchups were at such a low percentage, So being a journalist, I started diving into where we matched and where we didn't. And I found that the interests aligned a lot. It was really exciting. But then by the time I scrolled down to the end of the page, every man who was in my general age group wanted to date a woman 15, 20 years younger than he was. That was the single deal breaker. Clearly, I wasn't going to be going out with these guys, so I might as well do something else with my time. And I took a piece of graph paper And I started a chart. And the guy's age was on the left, and his target age was on the right. And then I grouped them, right, according to age. And I was doing math. The results were pretty sobering. It was about 2/3 of the men who supposedly matched up with me over a 3-month period were never going to get in touch and were not going to respond if I got in touch, because being the same age, I was too old for them.
Did that surprise you? I mean, isn't it kind of a tale as old as time? Men love younger women.
I suppose it's a tale as old as time, but my generation of women has basically spent its adult life pushing back on tales as old as time. We were not supposed to storm the workplace. We were not supposed to have reproductive rights, which we hope we'll get back. Our entire lives have been defined by what we're not supposed to do. I am not interested in tales as old as time. And I think one of the real reasons this thing went viral is because it hit a huge nerve. It confronted mostly men. There were some interesting comments from women, but it confronted men with, what are you doing? What are you thinking? And don't hide behind the fact that you've been doing this forever. We've changed a lot. Maybe you could change a little bit.
I remember this book by Peggy Orenstein, Girls and Sex. Her thought was that, you know, the bedroom is kind of the last frontier, not the last frontier, but a important frontier in feminism. And it's obviously taboo to talk about sexuality in public, and especially being an older woman. You know, older women are not supposed to talk about sexual desires and these types of things. So do you feel like part of the reason it hit a nerve is just like, this is not something women are allowed to talk about and talk about their own desires and sexuality and things like that?
I should say I know Peggy and greatly admire her writing. I would say, because, you know, feminism is now a trigger word, even among some younger women. I think the bedroom is the last frontier of humanism.
Okay.
Seriously, how are we going to treat each other? How are we going to get over these stereotypes that we dragged along with us like an old suitcase?
So your essay and Globe Opinion about dating after 60, 50 years old, it clearly hit a nerve with our readers. We've got nearly 400 comments on this article, which is a lot. And we've got piles of letters to the editor. Why do you think people responded so strongly to it? Like, why would this article hit a nerve with people?
I think this age group is what I've started to call the transition generation. Okay. We grew up in working dad homemaker culture, most of us. And then everything shifted. You know, I live in Los Angeles. It was a big earthquake. And we came out the other side different. Some of us took refuge in what we'd always known. So I think the definition of the generation, surely over 60, probably over 50, is broader than it ever has been before. And the generations that come after us make certain assumptions that we never got to make. So I think people go along with their daily lives. You know, men think it's their biological destiny to date younger women. There's that really dug in, hardwired position. There is a real depressing prejudice against women past menopause. Several of the comments really used postmenopausal as an insult. And that, I think, also is a very dug in, we are useful as long as we're reproductive, and then who needs us? Which is a very, very troubling thing. It's my experience in my personal life that the more truthful your observation is, the angrier somebody gets in response, because you've found them out, right? You've told them something they really wished they'd covered up. And I think this just opened the door. As you say, it's a tale as old as time, but that doesn't mean we should stop looking at it. And I think these guys just wish that I would go away.
That's a great segue into this next section. We're going to do something very courageous right now. I want to dive into the comment section of your article. First of all, are you ready? Are you feeling okay?
I'm absolutely.
Okay, good. It
As
can be
I
a
said,
scary place.
No. I read through all almost 400 comments, and I cut and pasted some of them, and then I divided them into categories.
Okay, so
Yeah.
first of all, before we get into specifics, I want to know what your relationship is with the comments section in general. Like, do you read the comments? Do you avoid it?
I read the comments and I avoid them. I should say, I think in the last 6 months, I have come to believe that the real world exists in the comment section. I find them fascinating, sort of like a crash on the freeway, and you can't help but look. My editor said, because I had asked if I could respond to some of them, and my editor's response was, "You can put on your armor."
Tell me what kind of categories you've made and what stuck out for you.
Okay. One of the categories is men are hardwired to mate with younger women to ensure the survival of the human species. Another category is older women are not attractive. Older men are active and women aren't, which is a subset of older women are not attractive. There's a hybrid category, which I refer to as fertility plus appearance,
Right.
which boils down to once you're past menopause, I don't really find you fun to look at or be with in any intimate sense. There are some nice rebuttals from women. Okay. Then there is the question of motivation. Why are you really dating someone much younger than you are? Also known as the moonstruck category.
These are the women.
Yeah. And then there are two really harsher sort of agenda categories. They have to do with revenge. They have to do with retribution. These sound like men who were unhappy in romance and are looking to get theirs back. And then the last category is kill the messenger.
Ad hominem attacks.
Yeah. And those are vicious. One person was sure I would never date again. Once I got over my initial outrage, I thought, these guys are a product of their culture as much as I am. And some people push against it and some people don't. That's as generous as I get.
I saw maybe one or two comments, men saying that they had experienced ageism themselves while dating. Do you have any thoughts on those comments?
That's a really interesting moral point. If you stand at a crossroads and you have been mistreated in your life, do you perpetuate the mistreatment? Or do you decide to do better and different? I don't think that having been treated badly by someone in your past is a very dignified reason to then turn around and make people feel as bad as you did. There's ageism everywhere. I mean, there's ageism everywhere, and it's very subtle and it's very nuanced, and I am sure that men experience it in different ways than women do. A lot of the commenters said something about how lovely it is to be involved with someone your own age because the cultural references are there, the experiences are there. You have a common language and a common experience.
There seems to be a couple fun comments that are some version of older women saying, if men want a younger women, they can have them. Just leave me out of it. What do you think of those ones?
Certainly, there were plenty of women in here, and this dovetails with the you're past menopause, you can't be of interest to me. There were several commenters, I think women, who said, you just don't get it. Move right along. I don't need you anyhow.
Right. You said that you think the real life exists in the comment section. There's something to learn there. What do you think for you is sort of the lesson of this response? Like, what's the takeaway in terms of how your piece was received?
It was depressing to see how many different rationales men had for simply ignoring the women who, when we were in high school, they wanted to go out with.
Right.
Right? We have somehow separated along the way. And I think that's a shame for everybody involved. All of these people who were talking about the biological mandate and how it exists for men, and somebody wrote in and basically quoted the movie Moonstruck. And for those of you who haven't seen it in a while, the main character's parents, the mom has a flirtation, but the dad has an affair. And when the mom finds out about it, played by Olympia Dukakis,
I was going to say.
She confronts her husband in front of the family and says, I just want you to know, no matter what you do, you're going to die just like everybody else. And he says, thank you, Rose. And I think that's the subtext to a lot of the comments. Sadly, older men looking for younger women to convince them that they're not dead yet. When if they went out with someone their own age, they could talk about that together.
Wow.
Right? Okay, that's it.
I love that. Now I'm going to go watch some Moonstruck. It's one of my favorite movies. I love it.
That clip is on YouTube.
I'm going to pull it up.
Cosmo,
What?
I just want you to know, no matter what you do, you're gonna die, just like everybody else.
Thank you, Rose.
You're welcome.
Thank you to author and journalist Karen Stabiner. After a short break, we're going to talk to the Boston Globe's letter editor, Matthew Bernstein. Welcome back to Say More's The Comment Section from Boston Globe Opinion. I'm Anna Kussmer, and I'm now joined by one of the most important people in Boston Globe Opinion. His name is Matthew Bernstein, and he's the Globe's letter editor. Hi, Matthew.
Hi, Anna. Thank you for having me.
So can you remind our, let's say, younger listeners, what is a letter to the editor?
So a letter to the editor is really not unlike an online comment, but there was some key differences. Letters are signed, so people send us letters by email, and they send us letters by email, and they put their name to it.
It's not anonymous.
Not anonymous, no.
And people are generally, they're reacting to a specific story usually, right?
Right, story or commentary. And that's, we do look for that. Occasionally we get open letters. Mostly I look for responses and pushing back against what we, are reporting and commentary, yeah.
So this is anywhere in the paper, someone will read an article and just want to respond?
Absolutely. It could be sports. It could be a graphic chart. It could be, the back of Living Arts. And, business, all different sections of the paper.
Right.
Yep.
So I've always been aware of letters to the editor because my mother likes to write them. And then, she'd clip her letters out and put them on the fridge like it was like a badge of honor that she got her,
That's
her
great.
points out there.
Letters to the Globe?
Oh, yeah. And the Herald. And I was thinking before, the years of Facebook, letters to the editor is kind of the original social media, like a chance for the public to essentially publish their ideas.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And what's great is that, the letters often inspire letters themselves. So, and I look for that. We have some really passionate, really thoughtful and argumentative readers, and they really want to push the issues and take the conversation as far as it can go. And so when they do that and they swing away, then we have people writing in response to that. It's almost like the back and forth you see in comments, sometimes it's just 2 or 3 day lag time. That's all.
Right. A little more time to think about
Yes,
it.
absolutely. But sometimes they come fast.
Yeah. And you get a lot. How many letters do you get on a given week?
In a given week, hundreds. And I read them all. I just don't want to think that there's anything left on the cutting room floor that I didn't choose to cut. I hate to think that there's a great letter that just wasn't seen. So, I make a point of that.
Letters are a great way for people to interact with the paper. And Matthew, I have asked you to identify some of the most memorable letters that you got in the past month, and we could actually hear them together read by the author. So which ones did you choose?
Yeah, and thank you for that opportunity. I chose 2 letters, one by Dr. Elise Henricks of Dorchester. The first one is from her, and it's on the field of primary care. She was responding to a piece we ran in the ideas section on doctors fleeing the field and how that is particularly tough for Boston's low-income neighborhoods. She's a primary care provider herself, and so she had a very personal take on that.
As a community health center family physician in Dorchester for more than 25 years, I read Tasnim Ahmed's August 18th Ideas piece with a heavy heart. All of what she said about the field of primary care is true, and I find myself despairing for who will take my place when I retire. I've lasted this long because of the great joy and fulfillment I get from the long-term relationships I have developed with my patients and the sense of mission of our work. Working in community health is the most powerful way I've found to combat racism and poverty. However, the pace of reform in this field of medicine has been too slow for so many of my colleagues, and the systemic barriers to providing the kind of care all patients deserve weigh heavily. I've been saddened to see medical residents in our center choose not to pursue primary care, even though they love the patients, after seeing the amount of work we do. It's demoralizing for the staff who remain and, as Ahmed makes painfully clear, a real loss for our patients.
Matthew, what struck you about Elise's letter?
Well, what struck me about that is, it just takes a huge issue that we've been doing so much reporting and commentary on, the issue of primary care and the problems of the healthcare field as a whole. Just affecting people locally across the country. And she just brings it home. She just brings it home to her workplace, to her many years in the field as a primary care provider, and into what it feels like for her and for her patients to see young providers leaving the field. And so it's all there in this letter. It's very impactful.
You chose one other letter. What other letter did you choose?
So the other letter I chose, and very similarly to Dr. Henricks's letter, it takes a huge issue. It's looking at the Israel-Hamas war since October 7th. Lost count of how many different views and viewpoints and arguments we've aired, throughout our pages, certainly in the letter section as well. And this is a letter that does the same thing. It takes that and it just brings it right home into the very simplest, most emotional and powerful kind of human reaction to what's been going on there in Gaza. It's written also by Kirat Siddiqui of Boston. She's an 11-year-old reader. I particularly love that as well because we are trying to reach younger readers. We know we have younger readers who are interested in us. We're competing with so many other media for their attention. But it's really encouraging to me to see somebody who's 11 years old who wants to share these views, sign her name to them, and see them in the letter section of the Globe.
And I read this as well, and she's actually responding to this. It was the news, was it commentary or news item about Netanyahu's speech to Congress?
Yes.
And
yes.
you had published other kind of political commentary on that speech, and then her letter comes after with this very different perspective based on all this kind of political
Yeah, and I'm
stuff.
glad you pointed that out because often, when there are so many different opinions on a particular piece of reporting or commentary, I do put them all in one file. And sometimes, it's slightly with a heavy heart because I feel like each letter on its own stands so strong. But together, I think what it does is it forms like a room full of conversation. And what I loved about Kirat's letter as the final letter is that it just lands there and it gives you something to think about in addition to all the other letters that came before it.
Let's hear Kirat reading her letter.
Palestinian children continue starving and dying. In Gaza, the Israeli invasion continues, dropping bombs overhead. Yet many people have moved on. Many look away from their TV screens. Many ignore the suffering and the pain of the Palestinian people, which has been going on for more than 75 years and in the last 9 months has exceeded the boundaries of humanity. All of us are tired about hearing what is happening in Gaza, but I assure you, it is many, many times worse for those who live it. Every day, children are denied the basic necessities of food and drink, which we take for granted, and countless die. We, the people of America, should stop this ongoing genocide. Palestinian children should have all the opportunities and hopes of a bright future. I hope and pray that one day these children will wake up to singing birds and not deadly bombs. Thank you.
Do you get a lot of letters from children?
No, I don't. When I do, I really welcome it. We have a process, of course, as well. I mean, I reached out to Kirat's first, and I got in touch with Kirat's mother. If I'm getting a letter from a minor, I think it's my responsibility to make sure that the family is all involved. In almost every instance, they are, and they're very well aware, and they're proud of their kid. Also, as an editor, I try to take a light touch. I mean, I feel like the voice of that person needs to come through. But in this case, there really wasn't a lot of editing I had to do on this letter. I just feel like Kirat really had a very clear and eloquent, powerful way of expressing herself.
And as with all of these letters, I mean, they're not meant to encapsulate all the different sides of a particular issue. It's just one person kind of speaking their particular truth and getting it out there in reaction to the news, and I think, Kirat, obviously, she's taking in the news with everybody else, and she has this very particular perspective.
Yeah, and that's, again, I mean, particularly in a file of other letters, it just gives you that one. It doesn't have to be the last word on it, but it's a powerful word, and it's a word that really resonates.
Can you remind the people how they can send their own letter to the editor?
I would be delighted to, because I welcome them. Send it to letter@globe.com. I know it's the strange email address. It's singular, but it's letter, Letter, @globe.com. Include your name, obviously, because we do want you to sign it, and your city or town in which you live, your street address, not for publication, but we do like to cite where people are writing from, and phone number we can reach you. We won't publish your phone number. We sometimes on deadline we do want to track people down that way. And 200 words or less. It's not a hard and fast rule, but it is a good guideline. So, you can say a lot in 200 words, as we saw from these two letters.
You should write, people. Maybe we'll get you on the podcast.
Right.
And I can assure you that Matthew, he does read every single one. I've seen him. Thank you so much, Matthew, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We'll see you next month.
I look forward to it.
And lastly, we asked two Boston Globe interns, Lindsay Shacknow and Camila Fonseca, for some of the highlights from their comment section.
Okay, a really memorable comment was one of my first stories about a whale, and people were mad at the whale.
There's another one, that's our education system hard at work, churning out mediocrity. I'm like, that's me. That's me. Hard at work, churning out mediocrity.
Say More is a production of the Boston Globe. Today's episode was produced by me, Anna Kusmer, and Maura Mellitz, with help from Kristen Nelson and Shirley Leung. Our editor is Jim Dow. Our engineer is Uzair Ahmed. Our music is from APM Music. If you like the show, please follow us and leave us a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can email us at saymore@globe.com. I'm Anna Kusmer. Thanks so much for listening.